Many men, many people in general have been taught that failure in life is not an option. But despite our faults, despite our failures, despite our heartaches and our headaches, when we realize that God's grace is sufficient, it's sufficient for our lives, we can operate in a freedom that is like no other. Today, we learn that grace is enough right here on Are You Willing to Hear? One of the most profound lies that the enemy has ever told to fathers and to husbands and even single men is that failure is unacceptable. As men, we are often taught that failure in life is not an option, that failure is a sign of weakness. Or a lack of determination. We are told that failure is not an option. And the word failure causes us to cringe on the inside. It causes us to recognize our own faults and frailties. And to fail means that there is a finality in being unable to meet the standards or objectives that were set before us. This lie, brothers and sisters, has caused a great deal of trauma and detriment to men, because when a man does fail, when a man does not succeed, when a man does not meet the mark, they find themselves unwilling or even oftentimes incapable of recovering from the loss. Because they have been taught that every forfeiture is final, every cost is concluding, every loss leads to a surrender. They've been taught that failure is final. And in an article entitled "Why American Men Are Failing," author Stephen Flurry further outlines the fact that the message being broadcast out by mainstream media, that men are privileged, that toxic masculinity reigns supreme, and that men are succeeding, further perpetuate this idea all the more. And the statistics support his claim. Let me give you some statistics about men in America. Men account for more than 3/4 of all suicides in the U.S. I'm going to say that again. Men account for more than 3/4 of all suicides in the United States of America, and the frequency is increasing. Fewer boys graduate from high school, and boys get worse grades and face more disciplinary actions than girls. 1 in 5 high school boys has been labeled with hyperactivity disorder. Don't get me started on African American boys, because that number is even greater. I believe it's 1 out of every 3 African American boys. Fewer enroll in college, fewer graduate from college, and fewer go to graduate school after college. Not to mention the few numbers that actually earn doctorate degrees and enroll in law schools and medical schools. My brothers and sisters, can I suggest to you on this day that the biggest factor in these issues remains this misunderstanding of the nature of failure. And this has contributed to the man's lack of success. But if you will allow me on today, I want to kind of shift your thinking. Shift your thinking for a moment. You can go back to thinking how you choose to after this if you like, but I pray that it blesses your heart so much that you refuse to allow yourself that opportunity. Allow me to help shift your thinking for a moment. In his book, Failing Forward, John Maxwell, renowned leadership expert, former pastor, he literally transforms the common person's ideology about failure by reminding the reader that oftentimes, success and failure occur in succession of one another. Think about that for a moment. He reminds the reader here that oftentimes success and failure occur in succession of one another. He recounts for the reader of the book the fact that many successful individuals have found themselves in the clutch of failure just before they became successful. Arianna Huffington, let me help you with a few examples here. Arianna Huffington, an online publisher, was rejected herself 36 times before her book was eventually accepted for publication. She now runs one of the most successful websites out today, news resources out today. Bill Gates, one of the world's wealthiest individuals, had to watch his first business crumble into shambles before he experienced the success he is currently enjoying. All right, don't believe that. Let's go here. Before George Steinbrenner, many of you know him as the owner of the New York Yankees, but before he made a name for himself as the owner of the New York Yankees, he bankrupted an entire franchise in 1962. Bankrupted an entire franchise in 1962. All right, still another example. Walt Disney, a name we know all too well, was told he lacked creativity and was fired from a local newspaper. Walt Disney, one of the most successful Imagineers out today. Please understand, it is indeed a fact that many successful individuals have found themselves in the clutch of failure just before becoming successful. Can I preach this morning how I feel it? If you've ever experienced failure in your life, if you've ever set a goal that you didn't reach, if you've ever applied for a job that you did not get, if you've ever taken a class that you did not pass, if you have ever started a task that you did not finish, you ought to thank God on today. You ought to thank God. What are you talking about, man of God? Listen, you ought to thank God on today, because if you've done any of those things, you're in good company. You're in good company, because there are some successful people who have failed in things at life. Number two, you ought to be excited on today, because if you failed at something, guess what that means? That means that success is on the way. Success is closer than it's ever been. In fact, you are more equipped. If you have failed, you are more equipped to lead somebody into success than somebody who's never failed before, because you know what ways not to go. You know what avenues not to take. You know what directions not to go down. You are familiar with what it is to fail, and that makes you more applicable and more applicable to succeed. It may not have felt good when you failed, but guess what? Success is on the way. It may not have looked good, but guess what? Don't worry. Success is on the way. It may not have seemed good, but guess what? Don't about it, because success is on the way. My brothers and sisters, because it is a fact that many successful individuals have found themselves in the clutch of failure just before becoming successful. I stopped by to talk to somebody who may be feeling the pressures of life because they missed the mark. You're feeling the pressures of life because you didn't reach the goal. You're feeling the pressures of life because you failed to make it to that destination that you thought you should be at. You failed to get to that next plateau. You fell short. You were just shy of where you believed you ought to be. But I came to encourage that individual on today. I came to encourage the man of God on today. I came to encourage the woman of God on today who has experienced failure. I want to let you know that while you may have failed, there is no failure in God. There's no failure in God. You are right where God knew you would be in this moment. You are exactly where God expected you to be. He is not surprised, nor is he disappointed. He is not caught off guard. For the scripture declares that the steps of a good man, a good woman are ordered by the Lord. Though he or she falls, he or she is not utterly cast away. If you have enjoyed Grace is Enough, I'm certain you will enjoy our other content. Make sure you like this post, share it with those you know will enjoy. Browse and subscribe to our page and hit the bell for notifications from us regarding our new content. Thank you for joining us and remain willing to hear.